Hi, my name is Kisha Brown, and I am the founder and CEO of Justis Connection, which is the only online platform that's a legal referral service that exclusively promotes Black lawyers. We've started right now in the DMV, known as DC, Maryland, and Virginia, but look to become global very soon.
Kisha, it is so nice to meet you. Hello.
Yes, hello. I'm so happy to have be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I literally, this is one of the things where I just said to you, just like when we were off, we'll call it the recording, was that you found me. Wait, well, I don't even know how you found me, but I love the fact that you found me and you just like sent out an email on LinkedIn saying, I'd like to be on your podcast. And I'm like, bravo for taking care of number one. Bravo for taking care of your company. So I was so excited. So now, of course, now you are a person where I don't know you. You are like the fifth person that I've spoken to that I don't know anything about you. Nothing, nothing, nothing. So yeah. Let's start at the very beginning. Kisha, please tell us all, who are you and where are you from?
Yeah, I'm a lawyer by trade. I'm originally from New York, but also grew up in Georgia. So I have sort of I feel like my northern street smarts and my southern charm. Little mix there. And I have Caribbean roots. My dad's Jamaican and my mom's family's from Barbados. So I feel like I have a lot of different worlds that come together. And just someone who I live here in College Park, Maryland, and I was drawn to Maryland, quite honestly, from visiting family as a kid. This is a random story that I'm just sharing, but like, I remember visiting my cousins and seeing Black people in nice cars. And my sister and I used to have this game that was like, oh, how many Black people can you count in a nice car? And I just remember being like, wow, Silver Spring, Maryland, what a great place. And so I was drawn to like come to law school here. And so I attended Georgetown University Law Center and then just stayed and then built my career largely in Baltimore.
So I love that game. That's actually a very cute game.
I mean, just kids coming up with it like, look at that. Well, look over
here. You know what? It is funny where it's something that you see or you experience when you're a child that pretty much catapults your life. So law, I mean, so yes, it started from like seeing the nice cars. Was the law going to law because you want to have a nice car, or is there something much more to that?
Yeah, I've just always been someone who was really passionate about Black people and advocating for us and recognizing, I feel like very early on that things weren't fair, things weren't right, that justice was not really a part of our daily experience. And, when you grow up and you have certain traits, in my family, I talked a lot, right? So then I'd have all my, family members, oh, you should be a lawyer, you like to talk or you like to argue. I'm Jamaican, so, fussing is sort of like how we speak. So people were like, oh, you should be a lawyer. And I honestly didn't even fully embrace it in the beginning because I didn't want that to be something that was driven by other people and not my own sort of desires. But I feel it is definitely a part of my calling, right? And I definitely feel like one of the reasons why I'm on this planet is to advocate on behalf of Black people. And I know especially nowadays, we're all sort of our hearts and our minds and everything, the whole universe is pulling in so many different ways. And as a Black person in America and dealing with, we've always dealt with the systemic racism, right? But I think having it be on the news every day, as far as people being killed and companies patronizing us, right? With here's our friendly Negro. I took a picture yesterday at my favorite Trader Joe's, and they had a little sign that was like, we support our Black crew members. And I'm like, don't nobody care about that. I need y'all to cut some checks. I need you to invest in our communities, And so I think that's just always been who I've been, right? And always done a lot of reading and history and really focused on us being empowered.
So let's just I want to roll back from that. So being a lawyer, being very drawn to the community in regards of making sure that everyone is being taken care of. Well, you come from 3 different clear communities. I mean, I'm first generation born here from Haiti.
Okay.
Um,
IT, we owe y'all a big debt.
I go with thank you, and that is one of the things where I forget. I mean, I know the history, but traveling around the Caribbean islands and to see how many islanders are so thankful for what Haiti has done is just. I mean, it really, really, it's so heartwarming. It's heartwarming. It's overwhelming because sometimes you're like, I didn't do anything, but then it's just a history of what we are part of. But you come from three. I mean, no, I should say you come from three. You live in the today, right now, in the United States. And you are from two very rich, I mean, very rich and very well-known and very vibrant cultures. How did that play a role into who you are right now? And how does that play a role into, and again, we're going to go into the business, but you being a lawyer, you knowing what your family and your families, where they're coming from and what they've dealt with in their countries and what they've dealt with here. Full circle, how did that make you who you are?
Yeah, great question. You know, so much of it from the fact that, you know, I grew up eating curry chicken on Sundays and thinking that's what everybody else ate, and and realizing at some point, like, you know, when you're a kid, you realize everybody don't eat curry chicken on Sundays, and you're like, oh, I don't want curry chicken on Sunday anymore, right? Or you do embrace certain aspects or certain things that are normal to you, right? That aren't necessarily to your peers. And you know, Jamaicans are special people, right? We're such a mighty folks from such a small rock. I mean, we gonna have the next VP in our, you know, in our side. So I think the Jamaican side was always extremely like boisterous and outspoken, and, you know, not afraid to back down from a challenge or even an argument, right? And I mean, that's something that I've even had to cultivate over my years, as far as like making sure I'm using my powers for good, because, you know, not everybody want to fuss with you. And, you know, sometimes Jamaicans, we come at things very strong, and it's because we can be very passionate, right, in the Caribbean, and you go right for it. And then Bajans are much more mild, if you will, right? Much more like, I don't want to say cerebral, but very like, they have a very strong economy, much more disciplined, smaller island. And so the different bringing together of the culture sometimes creates, I think I'm realizing it as an adult, how much of a balance it brought to my life, right? Because sitting around the dining room table, you know, the Jamaicans would be, oh, we're much better than the Bajans, and, you know, they're ready to go at it, and the Bajans would be like, all right, well, whatever, you know. And so I think there's a little bit of balance that you grow up with, and you bring, I bring that with me, you know, to what I do, right? So I'm not necessarily, there is a different legacy that I'm bringing to the table, right? And I think it's a different energy too, because there is a serious energy, I think, for folks who are African descendants of slaves, American descendants of slaves in this country, right? Mm-hmm. And I have a little bit of that, but coming from an island, the immigrant experience, right, as you know, very much factors into the type of energy that your family has, right? You come in and you come in ready to run, right? You ain't here walking, you are here to run. And so much can happen in one generation from that immigrant experience, right? People come, my grandfather came, and when he, you know, he knows from the day he came, and he stayed in a house where he rented a room and worked 2 jobs and was the first Black person to work at the front desk at the Howard Johnson, right? When he was a cook, and became a teacher, and brought my father and his sister and my grandmother from Jamaica, just a different, and then brought all the family over, right? All the family stays with my grandparents, and it just creates a whole different setup, I think, that is very motivated, and the expectations, right, were very high, and you don't have time to sort of misstep, and that's a whole different probably conversation, as you know, as like a West Indian child, and sort of the expectations that folks have of you to do well, and how everybody's depending on that. And I feel that same way for the entire Black community, right? Like,
well, I have to say, I pause you for a quick second, because you said it clearly, where the expectations of coming from a West Indies family, you nailed it. Doctor, lawyer, engineer.
That's it.
Then you did it. I gotta go there. And so you were already there. But at the same time, I mean, to talk to hear about your grandfather and your grandfather taking on all these different roles because there was one goal and one goal only, the family.
That's right.
Where I want the American dream, not just for myself, but I want the American dream for my entire family. And my entire family, the expectations are their expectation. And of course, it was an expectation for me where if I came here for you to achieve the American dream, you are here to help others. You're here to help others. You're here to improve the world, but you're not here just for a singular person. So I do love that part. Go to law. What law did you want to focus on? Because I mean, anyone could just be like, I mean, I'm a lawyer, just plain and simple, but what kind of law did you want to focus on? Now, again, we're layering in every single thing that you've experienced in your lifetime. And now you're a lawyer. When you walked in, when you made a decision to be a lawyer, what did you want to actually focus on first?
Civil rights, right? I knew from the get-go, I was like, I want to do civil rights. And it's interesting because, going to Georgetown, that's not necessarily the most popular topic. It's really—
Why is that?
Law school is very much geared towards the corporate world, the law firm, the large law firm world, right? Because it has so much prestige. You make a certain amount, it's certain law firms, it looks good on their profile for, the school. And so there's a lot of pressure around that, and not a lot of support around civil rights, and not even from Black lawyers, quite frankly. There isn't, because civil rights, I think people think they can't make a living, right? I don't think that people think you can make a lot of money and you can do good and do well. Right.
Well, because people have in their mindset of like, it's civil rights nonprofit, and nonprofit,
or it's poor, right? It's related to somebody who is being treated badly, which means they are likely of a lesser status. And if you're of a lesser status, then you probably have less money, right? And it's just not as prestigious as mergers and acquisitions, right? Or corporate transactions. So even in the field of law, civil rights, I think, unfortunately, is not really sort of highly held by some. And I think that's changing, right, with everything going on. And I hope for the next generation, those who are interested in civil rights, this next generation, that they pursue it in different ways that I think older generations sort of shied away from in an effort to sort of establish themselves and do well.
So now you're like, how many years before you started your company were you in? Like, were you practicing? Who were you practicing for?
Yeah, so I've been a lawyer now for 15 years. I was thinking about that. I was like, seems kind of long, but doesn't. I still think of myself as a young lawyer, so.
You are.
Right? So, when I first came out of law school, I worked for the Legal Aid Bureau, and I represented non-custodial parents who owed large child support arrears, which were usually to the state. So that is literally not what I thought I was going to be doing coming out of law school. But it was a tremendous opportunity to really be hands-on. Being at Legal Aid, I went to the Court of Special Appeals and won. I was able to litigate very early on. And I did a lot of presentations on roles and responsibilities of non-custodial parents, who are usually the fathers. And I did that, in almost every prison in Maryland, and outreach programs just all over, and was really able to cultivate the skill sets that I enjoy, right? So just being in the courtroom and doing one case wasn't really my vision, right? And I was able to explore being more connected, right? And having larger impact was something that was really important to me. And litigating and working on child support, I have to tell you, it was such an eye-opener and like a real cog in the wheel of poverty, right? Because we expect poor dad and poor mom to somehow create a child who has everything that they need in life as far as financially. And that's not true. Dad is poor, mom's gonna be poor, baby gonna be poor too. And it's a reality that we don't wanna face, and instead put responsibility on one parent or both parents to sort of make up a difference that oftentimes does not exist. So, I can get on and on with child support, because that, 70% of all child support is owed by people who make less than 20,000. So this ain't, deadbeat dads. These are dead broke dads, I like to say.
Well, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, I started my career as a teacher. and a teacher that I was in the town that I was raised in, and I was teaching in schools that the areas of town that I wasn't allowed to go to as I was growing up in this town. And I remember very clearly about how there was this constant like battle with the parents where the moms or dads were frustrated where, you know what, I can't get by. And yes, the other spouse that you see them driving the nice cars or you see them out and about and you're like, you know what, you have a child. You have a child that we need support, and or the individuals that both mom and dad are together, they're working really hard. They just can't get by. They just can't get by. So I've seen it all on all sides as well. So I definitely understand where you're coming from. It affects the child, wholeheartedly affects the child, because when you're realizing someone's not helping or both people are helping and you're not getting to you're not achieving your goals, and the basic goals, not just goals as in you're watching something on TV, the basic goals of living and surviving and thriving, it is a frustration for anyone that is actually watching and being in that situation with them.
Exactly. No, I applaud you as a teacher. Look, right when I graduated from law school, I was a teacher for like a hot second. So before legal aid, I was a teacher. And I just sort of wanted a break from the rigmarole of looking for a legal job. And so I became a substitute teacher. And them kids were so bad that they had run out 2-3 teachers before I got there in September. Okay. And so I was like, well, what happened to the teacher? They're like, don't worry about it. So after 2 weeks in, they were like, you want the job? You could be the teacher for these children. So I was their teacher for that semester. And it was such an eye opener. And it was really something where I said, every American adult should have to spend a day in a schoolroom, in a classroom.
Not a day when, so I was a teacher for 6 years, second graders, sixth graders, and School Without Walls. And when you should do it for a year, not a day, a year.
Hello.
Two jobs that I feel that you should be a teacher and you should work in politics, because the conversations that I'm seeing online would never exist, because you would understand wholeheartedly what happens behind the scenes.
That's right. And how crucial it is to have so many things in place in those developmental years, because I'm sure as you knew, as you saw, who's not going to make it, which was super scary. I taught fourth and I said, I can tell which kids are not going to make it unless something drastically changes in their life trajectory, right?
Or someone notices them and says one word of advice, because all it takes is that one person to actually be injected in their lives that cares and shows them differently. I mean, as simple as where I had a class of 40 children, and we're this is totally sidebar. I had a class of 40 kids in my classroom, and I remember kids that were constantly the trouble children.
That's right. You know
them. I would pick them. I'm like, go to the principal's office, go with this. And there's always a teacher in the hallway. They're like, oh, I found this one in the hallway. I'm like, I asked them to be in the hallway. I asked them. And because everyone has that, you're marked. You're marked by your siblings. You're marked by 2 or 3 items that you do. And then stigma stays with you. And so if you can have that one person gives you the opportunity to grow from that, difference. And you've heard those stories where the celebrities, the politicians, you've heard the stories like that teacher that said that I was never going to make it.
Yep.
I mean, they haven't ended. Those stories haven't ended.
They have not ended. So true.
All right. So substitute teacher, lawyer, now you decide to start your own business.
Yeah.
How that was, and how was that? You have a law degree, great school, family's proud of you, the American dream fulfilled, and yet you decide to go to entrepreneurs, because hey, it's in our DNA to be an entrepreneur. Why'd you go that route?
Yeah, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I didn't think that was in me. My family did not promote that. My mother to this day will be like, such and such is hiring. I just wanted to send this to you, go get a good government job and stay there and get your pension and ride it out. She was a teacher as well, by the way. But I sort of just started having a series of experiences. So I was working in government and being fairly high up. And what happens when your principal, when the main person gets voted out of office or leaves or whatever, the whole sort of team, turns over. And I didn't realize that at first, because I thought working in government, I'm being a public servant, but instead I was a part of this sort of turnover world when new administration would come in.
Mhm.
So I then sort of transitioned. I was director of Baltimore City Civil Rights Office.
Mhm.
And it was extremely stressful, right? So I took over, which included the Civilian Review Board. And I took that over a month before the Freddie Gray uprising. I was over it during the DOJ consent order investigation and so forth. And it was just extremely stressful and a very toxic environment, quite frankly.
Mhm.
So by the time I left there, I was like, okay, I need to like sort of regroup. Um, and I decided instead to do a little stint in private practice, not private practice, working for a private company as their external and community relations person. And it was a project to build this, I'll say, fast train on the East Coast. And I said to them in my interview, Jodi, you know, if you're looking for someone to get the community on board, I'm not your person, right? I see this as a huge economic shift, especially for Black people. If this happens, it'd be the largest transportation project, and Black people usually are on the back end, and there's a way to do this in a strategic partnership so that Black communities win and thrive, and that's how you have to build things, you know, in this day and age. And I think they just heard, quite frankly, an articulate, passionate Black woman, and they were like, "Ooh, yeah, say our stuff. So we want you to say our stuff just like that." Right. And needless to say, we were not a good fit. And I didn't stay very long, 7 months or so. And when I left there and I got in my car, Jodi, I just had a feeling. And God, at that moment, I feel like said, "Are you ready? Right? Are you finally done with all of this other stuff? And are you ready to do the work that's before you?" And I was like, yeah. And from that minute, you know, it was then, okay, I'm going to be building something. And it was Justis Connection.
So when did you decide, or how did you decide who your target audience was going to be? It is, when you sit there and say Black people, that could be, that's the biggest and vaguest comment that I could hear from anyone. So who was going to be your target? Who were you going to help? I mean, how are you going to engage the most to be the most effective and leave a legacy behind?
Yeah. So for me, I had a recurring experience from, I feel like, the minute I started law school, which was everybody and their mama being like, do you know somebody who does family law? Do you know somebody who does criminal law? Do you know somebody who does taxes? You know, so I always had that experience, right? And for me, it became an exercise where I'd say, sure, every time I'd always say yes, because I'm a lawyer, I know a bunch of lawyers, but I don't know what everybody does, right? So I would text a bunch of friends, send out a bunch of emails, EPB, anybody here, you know, and over a couple of hours or even days, I might get a couple names and numbers, and I would then make that referral. And after a while, I said to myself, we as Black people are, one, Black lawyers leaving money on the table, right, by not having a concerted network that connected us better to our community. And two, knowingly leaving our communities most vulnerable, right, to fend for themselves in a system, the legal system, which we know historically and continually has been oppressive and manipulative to us. And so I said, we need something that better connects us, right? And you think back, in the beginnings when Thurgood Marshall came out of law school, and you know, the Black community said, "We got you, Thurgood. You are our lawyer. We have a problem. We're coming to you." And Thurgood said, "Hey, I am here for the Black community, right? I'm here to serve the Black community." And you know, time has gone by, and people have moved here and there, and socioeconomic and all different reasons why we're not as connected as we once were. And that whole relationship with the Black lawyer and the Black community does not exist, right? And you've got the corporate side as well, who are like, "Oh, I wish I knew a Black attorney, can't find anybody, don't know where they are," right? And there's money there as well that really Black lawyers should be better to capitalize on. Especially now that everybody's looking for their favorite Black person to give money to, right? And to show how that they are diversified and they're equitable, then yes, there are resources. There are ways that money that should be better connected to Black communities will make a huge impact, right?
Well, I'm going to ask that hard question where, I mean, it's not even a hard question for me, but it's like, it's a question where, yes, right now, everyone is looking for a minority of some sort for checkbox. Everyone wants it, just because look what's happening right now. It's in the news. I have to sit there and do something. It's a check mark. But some people are just like looking for a warm body. They're just looking for a warm body, not the right body. And so
That's right.
how do you vet it through your company? I go, how do you vet the best of the best? Because if I'm looking for a Black, a white, a Hispanic, an Asian, a Southeast Asian lawyer, I want the best. I don't want just the skin color. So how do you just, because that's the biggest problem right now, where everyone's just trying to fill a spot. Everyone's doing a checkbox. But if I'm looking at 5 different people's skin color and they're all from Harvard, well, then, one, there's no diversity there. And number 2, how do I know that you're the best one? Just because you have a Harvard degree doesn't mean that you're the best one. So what is your vetting process to make sure that you're getting the best Black lawyers, the best brown lawyers that are part of your system, that want to help, that want to engage, that will actually give 120%, but yet at the same time, they need to pay their bills as well.
Yeah, I think we hold oftentimes Black people, people of color, to a much higher standard than we do just the default, which is white, right? When we think about hiring white people, we don't say we want the best white people, right? We want.
Well, I'm sorry, I was taught to always go after the best. So yes, I was taught that. So that's not always true. So,
well, no, it's not that we don't want the best, but we don't necessarily frame it in the same way. Right? When we talk about, you often will find we have that diversity language, that little line that goes on the bottom, right, of a job announcement or whatever have you, that's, oh, we're an equal opportunity employer, we're looking to diversify, right? And you've got that line. And then you'll also see, right, well, we're looking for the best candidate, right? The conversation then begins driven by, we're looking for the best candidate. We're looking for some, and you don't necessarily see that same conversation being had without the diversity component, right? When you bring diversity into it, it's now, but we're looking for the best. We're looking for Black people, or we're looking for people of color, but we still want to have the best, right? So I want to challenge just the notion that, those two things have to be couched when we always want the best, right? And that is our default, that we always want the best candidate, and we don't just want any old person, any old Black person, because we know good and well that as a Black person, you're not showing up just any old kind of way, right? You're showing up twice as good, working twice as hard, and still being looked at, well, I guess, some people may still look at you as that diversity hire, or we're doing this because we've got this.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. I like when you said that you challenge. I mean, that's why I was challenging you in regards to, yes, I want to have a minority as a partner in whether lawyer. I want that partner, but again, the way that I was raised is, I'm not just going to hire you just because you're a minority. I'm hiring you because you're going to sit there and have my back. And so that's why I want to know, what is your vetting process of getting the best lawyers, the best? I mean, they're Black lawyers, but how do you find the best Black lawyers that will do great work?
Jodi, I take the approach that it's very relative. I don't want to be the judge and the jury on who is the best lawyer, because I do not know, right? And I don't think that there is any algorithm or litmus test that's going to say this person is the best. Right? Because there's problems in all of that. And one of the things that we're actually exploring in Justis Connection is sort of when tech meets justice, right? The notion of even technology being race neutral and not, right? And that bias is literally baked into it. And so when we think about ways to sort of differentiate, that it's not always as clear cut as we think, right? What may be the best for you may be very different the best for someone else. And it could literally be the same subject matter, right? Because a small boutique firm might have different exposure than a large law firm. So just because somebody charges $600 and one person charges $100 doesn't mean that the $600 person is better, right? It's quite frankly the structure of their firm that most dictates that price range, as opposed to where they went to school, the time they've been practicing, the quality of their services, and things of that nature. Right. And so what we do is we vet to make sure that, one, they're properly barred. There's no outstanding sort of grievances and demotions and things like that that's outstanding for them. But really more giving the person, right, the potential client, the user, the customer, the power and the tools to make a better, the better choice, right? So that you don't feel like, I don't know who I should choose or what to do. We give them starter questions. We give greater in-depth information about the lawyers to be able to make better informed decisions, right? Because we feel if someone's better informed, they'll be more likely to proactively engage the system, to proactively fight for their rights or avail themselves of legal counsel.
Let's walk back a little bit where you started this company how many years ago?
I started in 2018 and officially filed in 2019. So we're still relatively young.
Okay. And then now like you remember when the world imploded 10 years ago, and you were in the job world. You were like, you had that corporate job. You started a company and then it happens again. But now to the 20th level where pandemic, the world is shut down. The corona is really hitting the Black communities a lot more than anyone else, and the Hispanic community as well, the Black and brown communities.
That's right.
How are you able to do your job knowing that you are still a startup, you're running a business? I know that you're a new mom. And so
I am
starting a brand new business, and your communities that you actually engage with the most are being affected the most. So tell me about how it started, where in March, when the words started coming down, and what has the past 6 months been like for you?
Yeah, they've been incredible, right? I actually gave birth in April. So when things started going awry in March, and everybody started shutting down, I really shut down, right? I literally just went to the grocery store yesterday for the first time in like 6 months. So it's been very, these are odd times for all of us, and I really think about how every person is dealing with this in a very unique way, right? We're all sort of shut down, but then there are all these different aspects, right, that have really made the shutdown just really different for so many people. But there are commonalities, right? There are commonalities where there's been a rise of evictions, right? With renters and even mortgage holders. There's a rise we're looking at and keeping our finger on the pulse here at Justis Connection around bankruptcies, right? Which we expect to be an issue. Divorces, have been reported, gone up as well. And so there's so many areas where the legal world touches, right? Being a lawyer, I see how, I'm like, the law touches everything, and we could really be a support, and we should be and will be a support in so many different ways. So we're researching, doing a lot around bankruptcy, with renters, with child support, family law, even around technology. One of the things that I'm really excited about with this When Tech Meets Justice series is looking at the bias baked into technology. And one of the first areas we're starting is medical devices, right? And looking at how these medical devices have this bias that is known, and ironically, Jodi, and not so ironically actually, how some of these medical devices are directly connected to COVID diagnoses and treatment and things of that nature, and how possibly, right, it is adversely affecting Black patients in a way that is connected to the device, right? So it's not just our underlying conditions, it's not just the racism from the hospital staff or the doctors that's systemic. It could be literally baked into those technologies, those tools and devices that are being used to treat us. So for me,
Well, it's so interesting that you mentioned that, because just today they were saying how, and Dr. Fauci was saying how we're needing more minorities to come and get tested, so that way we can put that in the data. And everyone that was interviewing, they're like, but the minority community doesn't trust you. They don't medical, because of history of how being used. And they use what example did they use? They used the I'm going to say it wrong, but
experiment.
Tiki, yeah. Experiment. And they're like, we have history of like why they will not come to you. So yes, you can come up with a vaccination, but it's not going to work when people don't want to come.
And history means yesterday, like literally 5 minutes ago. Because I'll tell you, Jodi, when I gave birth, I ended up having a C-section, and it was the last thing I wanted to do, right? But as a Black woman, I went right into that statistic, unfortunately, of being, we have C-sections more at a much higher rate than our white female counterparts, right? And so I had a healthy pregnancy the entire time. And so it is very real on how the healthcare system, we have very different outcomes, right, than our white counterparts. And it's very real, and it's so life and death for us. So there are so many things that for Justis Connection, it's like the time is now, right? And I can't move fast enough, right, sometimes, because I definitely feel that urgency and want to be so many different things to us in so many different ways, and see how the law can be helpful. And really am determined to stay focused around building this network up and connecting to, in particular, people of color to provide solid legal resources and making these connections happen, right? Getting people greater access to legal counsel, which I believe, right, is increasing their access to justice. When you have, I know where to go, right, to get legal help, then I have an opportunity to pursue justice in ways that I might not have. Because oftentimes, if you don't know a lawyer, you just become overwhelmed by it, right? It's so easy to sit and be like, well, this is just what happens, right? I get fired because I wore an afro, or I got fired because, I wouldn't susceptible myself to the sexual harassment that I was receiving, or they just let the Black girls go, first because that's just what this company does. And we think it's normal, right? We think it's normal. So many things have been normalized in our lives around that are really connected to discrimination. And it's about time that we really call on the charge of Black lawyers to defend the community, right? And pick up these laws that exist on the books and put them to use to empower and defend us.
Put them to use, but also try to find ways to make changes in the bylaws. I mean, these laws that have been around for quite some time, and I mean, just as simple as the Lovings, where they changed the law. They changed the law, and everyone's like, because people just assume law cannot be changed.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
I go, you just say like, I've got, it's the normalcy of this is the way it's always, right. Until there's that one person, i.e. you, that comes around and says like, no, it can be changed, and I'm going to be that person that makes the change.
Yeah, that's right. So before I took over as Director of Civil Rights for Baltimore City, I was the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Attorney General's Office, which basically means I was like the AG's lobbyist on the state legislature. So I also have a really good understanding about how laws are made. And you're exactly right. You change the law many different ways, by challenging the system in court. And oftentimes, whether the court changes the precedent based on sort of how that outcome of the case happens, or the government then becomes responsive to the shift that is happening, right? So let me tell you, if we started challenging, it's not been profitable on either the victim side or the lawyer side to challenge police brutality. It's an uphill battle. But if enough people were able to come forward, and for them to have cases that challenge the system, because these governments, Jodi, actually factor into their budgets settlement. They know the police are out there doing what they're doing, so they bake it into the budget. And if you push that even further and said, hey, your $10 million ain't gonna be enough, because we're actually going to push more to show that this is really a problem, that's something you can't just budget in, that needs to be changed on the front end. And we, the tax dollars, won't stand for our money to be sort of put into the budget for settlements. Why don't we change the system on the front end and change those laws and those policies?
I think that one of the things that's very beneficial to this happening is the education. So when we talked about earlier about everyone needs to start their career in education, if you do something and you've spent so much time learning about it and fine tuning it, I mean, like, marketing is what I live, breathe, and eat. I cannot turn it off. I can create content from the wind. I mean, it's what I do, but teaching it is what I love. Other people, so that way they can take that knowledge that I have taken all of my 51 years, because my mom said I started it when I was younger and I haven't stopped, But I mean, in all my 51 years of just literally like everything that I've like taken in and literally just pushing it out to as many people as possible, because not everyone's going to invest that time that I have in what I do. Not everyone's going to invest time in law like you did, but for you to go out there and teach and then make sure that people are growing from that is the benefit that we all need. And this is why we're loving that you're around.
Yeah, thank you. Look, you over there drinking unicorn tears for lunch? You said 51 years. Lord, I know that's right. You got the black don't crack that. Ooh, child, I don't see a wrinkle or anything. I mean, she got that cute little salt and pepper going on in the front, but
yes, it's weird. It's very weird. I'm not gonna take. When I was younger and I was on a plane and they were like, I want an ID. I want another. I'm like, I'm on a plane and you're asking for 3 IDs. Now that's just silly. But yes, I am very, very happy. I could be a millennial. I could be a Gen X. I could
look great.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you. So you own this business. Look, literally, you could have. There's so much that's going on in your world. Why did you? What happened during the pandemic for you in regards of your business growth, or because you had this time? I mean, you were gonna be home taking care of your daughter. You're gonna take care of your child. You have this time, but what did you add to your company that didn't exist before? That now, because you have the time, you were able to amp it up?
Well, it's interesting because I don't have the time. I think I love my daughter, but I do think about the fact if she wasn't here, I would be doing this 12 hours a day, easy, just in it, right? And so it's very, very interesting balancing being a mom, right? And having her, and tending to my first true baby, I suppose, Justis Connection, right? And making sure she gets the time. So I have, been blessed to cultivate a team of interns and friends and family who literally pitch in just different ways, right? To make things happen. And I'm excited that, even though I was not able to do the level of marketing that I would have wanted to do, I've had folks find Justis Connection, right? So we've been, upkeeping and doing things on our social platforms so that we can build a community and create some buzz at times. But I've had folks just find Justis Connection, which has reinforced that we're ready to go to the next level of development of the site. So we're excited to be building out the next level of the back end of the software over the next couple of weeks, so that we can be even more efficient in making our legal referrals. And we recently also started email communications with our over 600, 700 lawyers that we have, which I'm really proud of, because I anecdotally believe that we have more Black lawyers in the DMV than any other database out there. And so we've just, at times I want to be running, I want to be doing, I just want to be in it, just doing exactly what my vision and the work calls us to do. And we're still growing, right? We're still taking those step by step and building. And so I think it's been, the pandemic has required everybody to slow down. So there's a part of me that feels less sort of like FOMO, because I know everybody sort of slowed down a little bit. And so just taking it all in stride that we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing during this time period. And as we grow, and we'll be better equipped to meet the needs of our community, and that too will come in the right time.
What would you say to someone that is in the law field where everyone's home? Divorce rates are high. Like the work, the overload of work is real. It's real.
Yeah.
And they're just thinking, you know what? I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for this at all. Maybe it is time for me to look to do something different, as in leave the law field or start my own business. What would you say? What bit of advice would you say to that individual? Because I actually have a friend that is a lawyer, and he's tired. He's tired because I'm done. I'm not even applying to things that have law attached to it. And then I have individuals that have been corporate for quite some time, and they're just like, you know what? I'm a young person and I'm already burnt out. So those individuals that may be seeking something new.
Yeah, I say allow yourself, especially during this time, right? Encouraging folks to allow yourself to have the space that we often don't give ourselves because we're going to this event or we feel like we need to be doing this or there's the pressure to work, past 6 o'clock every day. Give yourself the space, literally the space to explore whatever it is, and I think first that starts mentally to allow yourself breathing space that you're not always thinking about work. You're not always thinking about the board work or the thing that you're supposed to be doing, and explore what it is that you're interested in, what you're passionate about, what brings you joy, what is meaningful for you. And think about just allow yourself to be in that space. You don't have to come up with an answer of, oh yes, now I'm going to be doing this, or now there's a title that fits that right away. But I think if we allow ourselves that space, then it will come to us, right? Things will align in ways that are mysterious and purposeful and true, but oftentimes we haven't given ourselves the capacity to even think about it. So taking some of that pressure off, hey, we don't have nowhere to go, ain't no happy hours. And even though they've opened up the movie theaters and everything else, that doesn't mean you got to go. You can still be at home and be like, nah, son, I'm good. I'm gonna do my Netflix and chill, right? And give yourself that space to actually think about and just imagine what could be, you know?
You are my new best friend. I just want you to know that right now.
Yay, I love it. We're going to do these Zoom calls every Friday, 11 o'clock.
You're so much fun. I love it.
I enjoy talking to you. Look, I'm over here trying to figure out what moisturizer you use. I'm like, she got a nice lip gloss. Let me write that one down.
This is so funny. So 2 things. So I'm going to promote 2 things. Number one, all right. So now I'm just getting hot under lights. So number one is, so I went to my cousin's wedding and a new bride in our family, she's like, oh my God, she found out how old I was. She's like, what do you use? I'm like, what do you use? She's like, what kind of soap do you use on your face? I'm like, well, the same soap I use on my body. She's like, well, what soap is it? I go, Irish Spring. I'm like, she's like, excuse me? I go,
right. You said it's $2.99. It's right there, Irish Spring.
Pack, dude, pack. It comes in a pack. I've used Irish Spring my entire life. I mean, and I'm not that person that's going to remember. And if I feel like I'm breaking out, I just throw on some Noxzema because Noxzema is tried and true. So Irish Spring and Noxzema, I've used my entire life. I haven't strayed. It's cheap. It's easy. Yeah. That's that. Lip gloss. A young lady, if you go on the podcast, a young lady that I interviewed, and she is 11 years old. She started her own business, and her lip gloss is legitimately amazing. I bought.
It's great.
Yeah. So she's amazing. See, look, I'm hot now. I'm hot.
It just looks flushed on my end. It just looks glowing. Yes.
No, but if you want really, it's great. It's amazing. Pandemic, she's 11 years old and she created this entire line.
Love it.
Inexpensive and it's good. And I'm like, God, I go out and buy Maybelline and blah, 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 blah. This beautiful.
Excellent.
Okay. Fabulous.
I love it.
Sorry, so wait, my last question to you. Okay. The question is, so if you had a professional ask and a personal ask of anyone that is listening to us being silly, but you, what would you be your personal ask and what would be your professional ask?
Great ending. Personal ask, I would say keep me in your prayers, right? For strength and courage and peace and wisdom and ease and rest. My daughter had a little sickness last night. She's only 5 months as of yesterday. So I had 4 hours of sleep. So this morning I was like, okay, we're gonna put some serum on your face. So pray for me to get some rest so that I can keep the journey going. But professionally, I would say to follow us, right? Follow us on social media, at Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're at Justis Connection, and that's JUSTIS Connection, right? And then on Twitter, we're Justis Connect. And for all of those who are saying, I want to be involved, I want to be engaged, please reach out. I don't believe that I'm the only keeper of this vision, right? And that this is really going to take a full team's worth to pull off, to bring forth, and to and to be successful. And so I'm always open to those who are willing to lead, to lend their time and their talent and their feedback and their insight and their money, right? Black businesses, Black female businesses, I think it's Jodi, we get what, 0.0006% of all venture funds, you know, and there's
still not growing, still not growing.
No, you know, there's a whole heap of grants that are out there, and there are literally hundreds of thousands of people who are applying for like every single grant out there. And so for those of you who have the money, come and talk, you know, let's invest in our own future. Because this isn't just about Black people being empowered, right? This is about America being better. And we can't continue to grow and develop and to be this awesome country if Black Americans are not a part of this American dream, right? Are not being successful, are not able to build wealth and build their own legacy.
Kisha, oh, what a powerhouse you are. I love
you. This has been amazing. I love talking to you.
It was, you know, it was so, I am so happy you reached out from the wind. I'm just like, you just like came out of nowhere, and
yeah.
I am quick to my LinkedIn where delete, and you just caught my attention. I'm so happy that you were not afraid to say, ooh, I don't know who she is, but I'm going to still reach out to her. So
thank you. Look, you know, at this point, I don't even remember, but the universe connected us one way or the other. And I was like, who's this fabulous Black woman who has this show? And then I went and I watched some, and I was just like, let me reach out, you know, and maybe she will take interest and we can connect and see what synergies we have.
Well, you know, my biggest thing is, I mean, I love intelligent people. I love people that have passion. I love people that want to give back to their communities. And this is, I mean, when the pandemic happened, I mean, I worked in the media. It drove me crazy 10 years ago where they were only talking about the gloom and doom. And this time around, it's all about I mean, we used to say in the media, and we still say it, if it bleeds, it leads. And I'm like, you know what? There are people that aren't bleeding, but they have great stories, and they're all over this world. And I mean, this is my give back, where I'm not going to be volunteering anywhere else, but this is my volunteering of giving back and sharing as many great stories out. Thank you. Thank you very much for having a great story.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here with you for this platform. I don't take it for granted.
And laugh.
That's what we need, right? We got to have that balance, and we work hard, we grind hard, you know, and it is a blessing to be able to connect with good people. So I'm excited about this new connection we have.
Beautiful. Thank you so very much. Take care of that beautiful baby and go take a nap.
No, girl, you know I'm not taking no nap. No, this is great. Thanks so much, Jodi.
All right, bye-bye.
Take care.